Did someone tell you that 93% of your problems have solutions? Sounds like a lie, I know. But what if I told you that Billy Graham discovered the secret to transforming obstacles into opportunities for growth? While millions seek complex answers, a man of faith revealed a simple yet powerful truth that's about to change your perspective forever. Stay until the end. What comes last will completely transform your spiritual journey. I remember when I faced my first major crisis of faith. The world seemed to be falling apart, and traditional answers weren't enough. Perhaps you're going through something similar now. That feeling that problems are multiplying while solutions seem scarce. It was at that moment that I rediscovered the teachings of Billy Graham, this man who spoke to more people about Christ than anyone else in modern history. What impressed me wasn't just his eloquence, but how he managed to simplify the deepest truths into practical lessons that anyone could apply. Today, we'll dive together into one of his most transformative messages. These lessons that have the power to solve practically all the problems we face as Christians in the contemporary world. In an era when so many seek answers in the wrong places, these principles are more urgent and necessary than ever. If you're not yet part of our Bible study community, take this opportunity to subscribe now and activate notifications. Each week, we uncover spiritual treasures like this one that can revolutionize your walk with God. Billy Graham, in one of his most impactful sermons delivered during the 1990s, shared insights that transcended his time. It was a period of global transformations, the end of the Cold War, the beginning of the digital era, and a time when many Christians felt challenged by the rapid advances of an increasingly secular culture. What makes this message so powerful even today is its ability to speak directly to the dilemmas we face. Amid a global pandemic, economic crises, political divisions, and challenges to our faith, Graham's words carry a timeless wisdom that seems to have been thought specifically for our days. This man of God, who spoke to more than 215 million people in 185 countries, wasn't just a charismatic preacher. He was a profound scholar of the scriptures who could translate biblical truths into practical lessons. His ministry crossed denominational and cultural boundaries because he understood that, deep down, we all face the same human challenges. The lessons we'll see today address three fundamental pillars of the Christian life: how to deal with growth through difficulties, the importance of spiritual and emotional self-care, and the transformative power of serving others. These are principles that Graham extracted directly from the scriptures and that have the power to solve the vast majority of problems we face in our journey. As we study this message, I invite you to reflect on your own journey. Where are you experiencing difficulties? What areas of your life seem to be in constant conflict? The answers that Billy Graham offers aren't just beautiful theories. They're time-tested truths that can bring real and lasting transformation to your life. When we look at Billy Graham's life, one thing becomes evident. He understood the transformative power of difficulties. In his preaching, he reminds us that life is a journey of learning, and that none of us has everything figured out. This humble perspective invites us to see our problems with a new outlook. How many times have you felt defeated by an unexpected obstacle? How many times have you thought, "Why is this happening to me?" Graham offers us a powerful alternative. Instead of asking why, we should ask, what can I learn from this? This simple change in perspective completely transforms our relationship with problems. The Apostle Paul wrote in Romans 5:3-4, "We know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope." This fundamental biblical principle is what Graham articulates when he says, "The most successful people aren't those who never failed, but those who never stopped learning." What does this mean for you today? It means that financial problem, that difficult relationship, that professional frustration, they aren't just obstacles. They're disguised opportunities for growth. They're part of the curriculum in the school of life, as Graham so poetically describes. Consider how Jesus transformed his disciples. He didn't protect them from difficulties, he guided them through them. When the disciples faced the storm on the Sea of Galilee, Mark 4:35-41, Jesus didn't prevent the storm, but showed his power over it. Similarly, God doesn't promise to remove all our problems, but rather to give us the grace to grow through them. Graham further highlights that growth rarely happens in comfort. Think about it. A muscle only develops when subjected to resistance. A tree develops deep roots when facing strong winds. Similarly, our Christian character is forged in life's trials. This truth is confirmed in James 1:2-4. Consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. One of the greatest struggles we face as contemporary Christians is the expectation of immediate results. We live in the age of the instant communication, instant food, instant solutions. But Graham reminds us that true growth doesn't work that way. It's not an overnight transformation. It's a gradual process. He compares this process to the growth of a seed. You warm it, nurture it, and wait. You don't see anything for a while, but beneath the surface, things are happening. This is a strong analogy for the invisible work that God is doing in our lives when we face challenges. How many times have you given up on a growth process because you didn't see immediate results? Perhaps you've prayed for change, but the problems persisted. Graham would encourage us to persevere, to understand that growth is often invisible before it becomes evident. He invites us to be students of life, to ask questions, to listen more than we speak, to engage with people who challenge our thinking. This humble and open approach is essential for continuous growth. It's the antidote to spiritual stagnation. And there's an important warning here. The moment you stop learning, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, you begin to die. This is a principle we see repeatedly in the scriptures. Proverbs 18:15 says, "The heart of the discerning acquires knowledge, for the ears of the wise seek it out." Graham shares a personal experience that illustrates this principle. He went through a season where nothing went as planned, where doors closed and efforts seemed futile. Instead of allowing this to break him, he chose to learn. This season of struggle became one of the best lessons he'd ever had, teaching him resilience, patience, and the power of persistence. This story resonates with so many of us today. In a post-pandemic world, with economic uncertainties and challenges to our faith, we may feel like we're hitting walls. Graham's message is clear. Remain in the posture of a learner, see every challenge as an opportunity for growth. Paul wrote in Philippians 3:12-14, "Not that I have already obtained all this, or have already arrived at my goal, but I press on to take hold of that. Forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal." This is the heart of Graham's message about growth. It's a continuous journey. We don't arrive at a place of wisdom or peace and simply remain there. We must keep working, keep learning, keep growing. As we face the unique challenges of our era, let's remember that growth isn't just about adding more to our life. It's about becoming more. And when we become more, when we embrace growth with an open heart and a willing spirit, we discover that many of our problems begin to seem much smaller. As we close this first section, reflect. How have you been responding to the challenges in your life? Have you been asking, why me? Or, what can I learn from this? The answer to this question may well determine whether your problems will become permanent obstacles or stepping stones for your growth. And what we'll see next reveals how this growth is intrinsically linked to the way we care for ourselves. The concept of self-care is often misunderstood in Christian circles. Some see it as disguised selfishness, others as worldly indulgence. However, Billy Graham presents a profoundly biblical perspective on this crucial topic. Taking care of yourself isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's not selfish, it's essential. This truth resonates with what Jesus taught us in Mark 12:31 when he instructed us to love your neighbor as yourself. Note well, love for neighbor presupposes healthy self-love. We cannot give what we do not have. As Graham eloquently puts it, you can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't keep giving when you have nothing to give. Why is this so important? Because many of us are living on the edge. We're running on empty, as Graham describes. We assume that persisting despite exhaustion is a sign of strength, when in reality, true strength lies in knowing when to pause, when to rest, when to say, I need a moment. Observe how this principle is demonstrated in Jesus' life. In Mark 6:31, after an intense period of ministry, Jesus says to his disciples, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." Even the Son of God recognized the need for recharging and renewal. The self-care that Graham advocates goes beyond physical health. Certainly, he affirms the importance of eating well, exercising, and getting enough sleep. But he also emphasizes mental and emotional well-being. It's about creating space to breathe, to process, to simply be. When was the last time you allowed yourself to simply be in God's presence, without an agenda? King David understood this principle when he wrote in Psalm 46:10, "Be still and know that I am God." A crucial aspect of self-care that Graham highlights is establishing boundaries. One of the most powerful ways to care for yourself is to establish boundaries, he affirms. This includes learning to say no when you need to and understanding that your time and energy are valuable. For many Christians, especially those in positions of service and leadership, establishing boundaries is a challenge. We feel guilty about declining requests or setting aside time for ourselves. However, Graham addresses this directly. Guilt is the enemy of self-care. It convinces you that putting yourself first is wrong, when in fact it's one of the rightest things you can do. Paul instructs Christians in Galatians 6:5 to carry their own load, a reminder that each of us has responsibility for our own health and well-being. This doesn't contradict the call to carry each other's burdens, Galatians chapter 6:2, but complements it. We must take care of ourselves to effectively care for others. Self-care also involves being selective about what we allow into our space, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Graham encourages us to engage with people who lift us up and to carefully choose what we consume, whether it's the food we eat, the media we watch, or the conversations we engage in. This reminds us of Philippians 4:8, where Paul instructs us to think about Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable. A critical point that Graham makes is that self-care must be planned and prioritized. You have to make the time. You have to prioritize it, plan for it, and commit to it, like any other important responsibility. Many of us treat self-care as a luxury for when we have free time, which rarely comes. Stress management is another fundamental aspect of self-care. Graham acknowledges that life will always have its stresses, but how you handle them makes all the difference. He suggests finding ways to decompress, to let go, to find peace even in chaos, whether through meditation, prayer, exercise, or simply spending time in nature. Jesus modeled this perfectly. The Gospels repeatedly record moments when he withdrew to solitary places to pray. Luke 5:16. He knew that connection with the Father was essential for his mission and well-being. A profound part of self-care, according to Graham, comes from self-knowledge, really knowing yourself. It's about understanding what you need, what makes you happy, what drains you, and what revitalizes you. This self-knowledge allows you to give yourself the care you need at the times when you need it most. Proverbs 4:23 instructs us, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Self-care is, in essence, a way of guarding our heart. The result of proper self-care is transformative. When you prioritize self-care, you show up as the best version of yourself. Not just for you, but for everyone around you. You become a better partner, a better parent, a better friend, a better leader. In other words, self-care isn't selfishness. It's responsible stewardship of the gift God has given us, our life. Graham concludes with a powerful statement. Self-care isn't just an act of love toward yourself, it's an act of love toward the world. This perspective changes everything. Properly caring for yourself isn't a worldly or self-centered indulgence. It's an act of spiritual obedience and a prerequisite for effective service. As we close this section on self-care, consider, how have you been caring for your spiritual, emotional, and physical temple? Are you allowing God to renew your strength, or are you trying to serve from an empty cup? Remember the words of Isaiah 40:31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Self-care prepares us for the theme of our next section, because when we are properly filled, we can truly live a life of genuine and impactful service. And it's in this service that many of our problems find unexpected solutions. One of Billy Graham's most profound insights is that many of our problems are solved not when we focus on them, but when we direct our attention to serving others. One of life's deepest lessons, he teaches, is that satisfaction doesn't come from what we receive, but from what we give. This truth echoes Jesus' words in Acts 20:35. It is more blessed to give than to receive. Graham elaborates on this principle. There is a deep and lasting joy that comes from living a life of service, from using your gifts, your time, and your resources to make a difference in the lives of others. The beauty of this approach is that it takes us out of the cycle of self-preoccupation. When we're constantly focused on our problems, they tend to grow in our perception. But when we turn outward to the needs of others, we gain perspective and our own challenges often seem smaller. Graham demystifies the concept of service by clarifying that it doesn't necessarily require grand gestures or heroic sacrifices. Service can be as simple as a kind word, a listening ear, or an extended hand, he explains. This aligns perfectly with Jesus' instruction in Matthew chapter 10:42, where he speaks about the importance of even offering a cup of cold water. These small acts of kindness may seem insignificant, but Graham reminds us, sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can make the biggest difference. Think about the impact that a simple encouragement can have in the life of someone who is struggling with doubt or despair. A transformative aspect of service is how it affects the server. When you focus on serving, explains Graham, you change your perspective. Instead of dwelling on your own problems, you begin to see the blessings in your life. This principle is illustrated in Job's life, who found restoration precisely when he began to pray for his friends. Job 42:10. Service also frees us from the prison of self-centeredness. There's something incredibly liberating about living a life of service, affirms Graham. When you focus on others, your own worries often diminish. This doesn't mean our problems magically disappear, but they frequently lose their power over us. Paul understood this principle when he wrote in Philippians chapter 4, "Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others." There's a freedom that comes when we can get out of our own head and focus on the needs around us. Graham points to another benefit of service. It gives us a new perspective on our own struggles. When you see someone struggling, when you witness true hardship, it puts your own challenges in perspective. Again, this doesn't invalidate our own pain, but helps us frame it more realistically. Jesus often taught this truth through parables and examples. He showed how the priest and the Levite were so concerned with their own agendas that they missed the opportunity to serve the injured man on the road, while the Samaritan, who stopped to help, exemplified true neighborly love. Luke chapter 10:25-37. Graham also highlights how service strengthens relationships. When you serve others, you create connections. You create bonds that are grounded in love and selflessness. In a world where so many suffer from loneliness and isolation, service offers a path to authentic connection. The early Christian communities exemplified this. Acts 2:44-47 describes how they shared goods, cared for one another, and as a result, enjoyed the favor of all the people. Their mutual service not only met practical needs, but also strengthened their community bonds. A common obstacle that Graham addresses is the perfectionism that prevents us from serving. Sometimes we hold back because we feel we don't have enough to give, or that our efforts can't be good enough, he observes. But the truth is that what matters isn't the size of your service, but the size of your heart. This reminds us of the widow who gave 2 small coins, Luke 21:1-4. Jesus valued her offering above the large donations of the rich because she gave all she had. Authentic service isn't measured by quantity, but by the attitude of the heart. Graham explains how service can actually solve our problems. When you give, it changes your thinking. It moves you from a place of scarcity to a place of abundance. It shifts your focus from what's missing in your life to what you can contribute. This shift in perspective often helps us find creative solutions to our own challenges. When you bless others, he continues, you open your life to blessings as well. This reflects the principle of Proverbs 11:25. A generous person will prosper, Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Service also helps keep our priorities aligned. When life becomes busy, when stress starts to build up, service brings you back to a place of simplicity and truth, explains Graham. It reminds you that your worth isn't in what you own or what you achieve, but in how you love and how you give. In a culture where we constantly feel the pressure to produce, achieve, and acquire, service reconnects us with what truly matters. Jesus said clearly, "What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul?" Mark 8:36. One of the most encouraging aspects of service that Graham highlights is its potential for unknown impact. You never know the full impact of your service. A kind word, a small gesture, a moment of your time may seem insignificant to you, but it might mean the world to someone else. This truth should inspire us to be generous with our service, knowing that God can multiply our efforts in ways we could never imagine. As Paul wrote in Ephesians chapter 3:20, God is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. Graham's conclusion about service is profoundly powerful. If you want to solve 93% of your problems, start serving others. Give what you can, where you can, when you can. Because when you lift others up, you also lift yourself. And in giving, you receive more than you could imagine. As we reflect on these words, we're invited to ask, how am I using my time, talents, and resources to serve others? Am I so focused on my own problems that I've lost sight of the opportunities to serve around me? Christ's invitation in John 13:15 resonates strongly. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. As we conclude this exploration of Billy Graham's 3 great principles, we see how they intertwine perfectly. Growth through difficulties prepares us to serve better. Self-care strengthens us so we can serve sustainably. And service, in turn, provides us with new perspectives and solutions to our problems. This virtuous cycle has the potential to transform not just our personal life, but also our impact on the world around us. As we reach the end of this study of Billy Graham's life lessons, we can clearly see why he claimed these principles can solve 93% of our problems. These aren't magical formulas or simplistic solutions, but profound truths rooted in biblical wisdom and tested in the field of human experience. When we embrace difficulties as opportunities for growth, when we intentionally care for our spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being, and when we direct our energy to serving others, we discover that many of the problems that seemed insurmountable to us begin to dissolve, or at the very least, become more manageable. Graham didn't promise a life without problems. That would contradict Jesus' own teaching. But he showed us a way to navigate those problems with grace, wisdom, and purpose. As he himself said, life will always have its ups and downs, but with a strong foundation, you can weather any storm. The application of these lessons begins today, right now, with a simple decision. You can choose to see your next obstacle not as an enemy, but as a teacher. You can commit to establishing healthy boundaries and self-care practices that honor your body and soul as the temple of the Holy Spirit. And you can look for a way, even if small, to serve someone today, knowing that this act of generosity will nourish not only the recipient, but also your own soul. If this study has touched your heart and you wish to continue exploring the transformative truths of faith's great preachers, I invite you to like this video, comment your greatest discovery, and subscribe to our channel. Each week, we uncover together these pearls of wisdom that have the power to revolutionize our Christian walk. Share this video with someone who is facing difficulties, someone who needs a reminder that most of life's problems have solutions, though they may not always be the solutions we initially expect or seek. Always remember, it's not the size of your problems that determines the course of your life, but the greatness of the God you serve. As Billy Graham constantly reminded us, when we place our trust in Christ and apply His truths, we find not only solutions, but also purpose in every challenge we face. Now that you know these transformative lessons, I ask, what will you do with them? If something within you was touched today, don't let this moment pass without a response. Share in the comments a specific area of your life where you will apply one of these principles this week. Your testimony might be exactly the light someone needs to find hope amid their own struggles. Remember, you aren't just receiving wisdom, you're being called to live it and share it. This is the legacy that Billy Graham left for each of us, not just to know the truth, but to allow it to transform us from the inside out.